All right, time for a new film analysis. It's nice in the midst of a CUFID to be back at the movie theater. It's weird, the pseudo-dystopian, quasi-dystopian era where there was no movies for a year. I don't know. I think I went to the movie theater once last year. And maybe twice. And the main reason I did that was because there weren't new movies. There were old movies being played. So you had this weird time loop dystopian period where you could go like it was the 80s and watch Indiana Jones or Back to the Future. So it was one of the few good things about the last year. And I don't remember the last time I saw a really good psychological thriller, but I have to say I was really impressed with The Nighthouse. The Nighthouse stars Rebecca Hall and lived up to the expectations. And I'm pretty good at deciphering psychological thrillers because I feel like I've seen them all and I've seen all the different iterations and patterns because they typically just kind of repeat. And in fact, I have to say that The Nighthouse was better than The Green Knight. I had high hopes also for The Green Knight. And apart from some interesting cinematography, The Green Knight was kind of a letdown. So I'll mention some of The Green Knight, but really the focus here was how unable I was to decipher The Nighthouse. So you got a potentia wine mom, a wine mom in potentia here with this woman who we learn has lost her hubby. Hubby's gone. It appears initially that hubby committed suicide. And so she, appears to have developed a drinking problem. We see some pills on the counter, probably we think a form of Prozac, right? Some kind of SSRI. And she has these weird glitches, right? So she's at work the next day. She's a teacher and she's looking over gun websites, which is odd. I'm not exactly sure of the meaning of the gun glitch because she glitches out when she's looking at a gun website and her one of her students' parents comes in and quizzes her and she quickly shuts the screen or whatever. So I don't know. I think initially maybe that's a little bit of misdirection, right? So the director wants us to think that this person is a multiple personality, right? This person has dementia. This person is losing it. And that's the great thing about this movie was that we're continually being led down different pathways and we don't know which one it is. And there's no clear indicators as you're watching which of the explanations is going to be the thing that's really going on. And so many movies are, terrible at this, where they telegraph right away the whole thing. And they really insult the audience as if, we're all idiots and, we haven't seen a million times somebody's got to help a ghost, right? Solve the unjust demise, right? Like everybody knows that like ghosts are actively seeking living lawyers to help them justify their death. We've seen this stupid plot 1,000,000,500 times. Then we're watching, right, Nighthouse, and we're noticing weird things. I really liked the upside down element, right, in the inverse world. And that's where we start to realize, okay, so there's something maybe spiritual going on here. This is not just a tale of a wine mom in potentia's mania. This is actually a tale of some kind of spiritual thing. And so the main character starts having these seemingly prophetic or revelatory dreams. And so we know she's in the dream sphere, the shacosphere. And we know that that is a realm of revelation, but it always has to be decoded, right? You can never have a dream that tells you something clearly. It's always got to be presented in these Jungian archetypes that require the rest of the movie to decode it. So in the midst of her dream, she starts to see that there's another version of this house, right? That her husband, who has an affinity for architecture and for carpentry. And this is going to be relevant because this boyfriend figure, this passed away fiance or whatever he is figure, is a kind of inverse Christ, right? We're starting to notice these inverse antichrist themes of the boyfriend. And for example, we see him in one of the early visions walking on water. Now, why is the boyfriend walking on water? Well, that's intended to show, right, that this figure is in some way a Christ figure. But we keep getting the impression that he appears to be an evil figure, yet at the same time, we don't know if the boyfriend in real life, right, the fiance that's dead, was he evil, or is this an evil spirit somehow in the ether sphere that's causing, these problems, or that caused the problems with the boyfriend, or that is now haunting Rebecca Hall? We don't know. And that was the best part of this movie, was keeping the viewer continually guessing and trying to put together as movie detective. And we play movie detective when we go and watch the movies. And we're pretty good. I've seen a lot of movies. We're pretty good movie detectives because, as Northrop Frye discusses, there's a limited number of stories and archetypes. So we see this, anti-Christ-ish imagery of the boyfriend walking on water. He's nude, which is weird. It's sort of like, is he resurrected? Is he this, spirit being now that's deified? What is going on with this boyfriend? And then we start to get the impression that, it turns out the boyfriend had designed this house with another type of house in mind that's a mirror of it with weird turns and angles. Why would you design a labyrinth house? And we see her finding a book that he had called Hereditary, which is a reference to medieval Welsh mazes. Now, why is this boyfriend, who is into architecture and carpentry, why is he designing these confusing houses? Their house isn't particularly confusing, but it does appear to be haunted. Then, lo and behold, she discovers that across the lake where they live, the boyfriend had erected this secret in-process house that never got finished, which is eerie. It's got all this weird stuff going on, and it's got not a totem, a voodoo thing going on. Right? So she finds a voodoo doll of a woman who had sort of been bent back in a Dahmer-esque pose, if you're familiar with the art, right? Or a so-called art that some people like that references the bodies of Dahmer that had been bent back. So they find a woman, a voodoo doll of a woman, in that sort of pose, and she's again trying to figure it out. What was my boyfriend really up to? Oh, it turns out on his phone, he had a bunch of creeper stuff on his phone, and he was creeping on people. What was going on? Then we get more revelations of the dream world, the dream sequence, and we discover, it looks like other women were somehow being killed by the boyfriend. Somehow. She says she has the vision of the girls jumping off the ledge. They're obviously being killed. They're dying. Somehow the boyfriend's connected to this. Turns out, he has desires that he can't control. And what I liked about this, and I fell for it because I just couldn't figure out any other way, was, the boyfriend is just a serial killer. And, now we're watching a movie of a woman unraveling because she discovers, this guy I was with, all these years, how could I have not guessed he was just a serial killer? So I married an axe murderer the whole time. And then we discover, there's another layer going on, because we keep figuring out or forgetting that there's this spirit realm element, right? It's not just dreams telling her, I just missed the red flags all these years of the body parts or this or that. No, there's a spirit that's communicating with her, and we can't figure out the relationship between the spirit and the boyfriend. And then it starts to become more apparent. the spirit possessed the boyfriend. And then we think it's a demonically possessed serial killer boyfriend, but it's not. And this was the one sort of goofy element, but at the same time, I could see it working within the storyline. Turns out the boyfriend was into voodoo, and he had been studying these different ways through ritual magic and voodoo practices to try to deceive spirits. So he had built a maze in that other house to try to deceive the spirits. And he thought that he could, by deception, fool the demon into thinking that the girls that he was, as a serial killer, was kidnapping were his girlfriend. Well, of course, I don't know why he thought this would work, but sometimes people that get into that stuff, they do believe goofy things. And no, right? The spirit was not duped by his picking a bunch of brunettes that look like his girlfriend. So he had been killing people, but he was serial killing to feed the demon that possessed him. So it was a possessed serial killer story. And he was trying to feed this demonic possession that he had. And the boyfriend had been possessed for a long time, precisely because it turns out that when Rebecca Hall was a kid, she had a wreck and was briefly dead. So she had a near-death experience. And she says, my whole near-death experience turns out was nothing. So sorry to disappoint you, believers in the afterlife. There's nothing. And she thinks that because she experienced no thing. And what's interesting about the movie, as the reveal at the end shows us, the suicide note that the boyfriend serial killer left was about no thing is after you. Well, guess what? The demon is no thing. And in some philosophic religious traditions, we do have the description of demons as non-beings. And that doesn't mean they don't have existence, but rather that because they're fallen angelic beings, they are kind of in a perpetual movement of negation away from being, from the good, from existence into non-existence. They're sort of in an infinite fall into non-existence. And being locked in that state, they are a kind of perpetual negation. And so they actually then identify as, I am no thing. I am nothing. I am nihilism, and you are nothing. And all things are no thing, as an act of blasphemy, you see. Thus, we get the explanation why the boyfriend was walking on water as a kind of antichrist type of figure. We see him at the end in the boat, and this boat is kind of like the ship. It's the ark. It's like a Jesus in the boat type of imagery. He beckons Rebecca Hall to come to him into the boat, right? And then when she gets in the boat, and she discovers that, oh, my boyfriend was possessed this whole time. It was the demon that, was requiring all of these sacrifices. We even get hints and nods at Twin Peaks. Rebecca Hall's head gets bashed against the mirror, just like when Bob possesses Agent Cooper, right? When Coop gets possessed at the end of Twin Peaks season 2, he bashes his head on the bathroom mirror. Exactly, right, what we see here, except that here it's the spirit who is trying to grab and possess Rebecca Hall's spirit. He wants her soul. And he tells her right at the end, I am nothing, and that's all there is. So guess what? You were right. It's just that the nothing that you thought you experienced was the demonic realm. And that demonic realm is very real. And so then we get at the end of the film, the revealing sequence where she sees, right, and a shadowy figure in the boat, and that's the demonic spirit that's there. And the guy says at the end, who rescues her, right, there's nothing there. And she says, you're right, it's nothing. Nothing, aka the demon of nihilism. Nihilism is demonic. So if you like Twin Peaks, if you like that kind of a spiritual twist in the psychological thriller, I highly recommend Nighthouse. It was excellent. Symbolism was well done. Cinematography was great. Much better film than The Green Knight, which I thought was pretty much a flop. I didn't care for it at all. It was really dumb. There were some interesting cinematography aspects to it, but definitely if you're going out to see a movie in the near future this weekend, go for the Nighthouse.